When your life feels like it's falling apart, it might be because your soul is coming together. Jung believed that every descent into chaos carried the potential for transformation. Before we rise, we often have to collapse, not because we are broken, but because the false parts of us are being stripped away, so the true self can emerge. The beginning of the best stage of your life rarely feels like a celebration. It feels like confusion, fatigue, heartbreak, and silence. It feels like being forced to let go of the roles, masks, and attachments that once gave you a false sense of security. According to Jung, the process of individuation, becoming the person you are truly meant to be, is rarely linear. It is filled with psychological thresholds, emotional deaths, and spiritual rebirth. And the deeper you go into your unconscious, the clearer the signs become that you are entering a powerful transformation. This video is for the person who doesn't know whether they are breaking down or breaking through. For the soul who feels lost, but suspects they are being realigned. For the man or woman who is starting to sense everything painful they endured was actually preparing them for something extraordinary. So how do you know you're at the threshold of the best stage of your life? The signs aren't glamorous. They're not what social media tells you to look for. They are psychological, spiritual, emotionally, and deeply. Sign 1. You begin to distrust the life you built for someone you no longer are. You look around and everything feels oddly foreign. You may still live in the same place, talk to the same people, wear the same clothes, but you feel like a ghost inside your own story. This is the beginning of individuation, when the ego loses its grip and the authentic self starts whispering. Jung taught that the ego clings to safety, but the self demands authenticity. When you start questioning your old dreams, when the goals you chased now feel empty, when you look at your relationship and wonder who you're pretending to be, that's not fair. That's transformation. This distrust of your previous identity is not a crisis, it's a calling. It means your inner world is rejecting the performance and demanding truth. The soul can no longer tolerate pretense. Sign 2. You feel strangely calm around chaos. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you no longer panic. You've been through enough emotional battles to know that survival is not accidental, it's alchemical. You begin to trust that even destruction carries intelligence. Where others see breakdown, you begin to detect the subtle signs of divine intervention. You no longer see loss as punishment, but as sacred redirection. You no longer beg to keep what's falling away, you start to let it. This is not indifference. This is spiritual maturity. You understand that what is not meant for your next chapter must burn itself out. The fire isn't against you, it's forging you. Sin 3. Solitude becomes sanctuary, not suffering. You no longer chase noise to avoid silence. Instead of fearing your own company, you begin to crave it. The empty room that once felt like exile now feels like return. Jung described the necessity of withdrawal as part of transformation. Before we know who we are, we must separate from who the world told us to be. And solitude is where the ego's mask falls off and the self's face appears. In your silence, your pain finally has a voice. In your stillness, the fragments begin to reunite. You begin to see that loneliness was the medicine you once resisted but always needed. Sin 4. You begin releasing people without bitterness. Once upon a time, you would have begged to stay in someone's life. You would have bent, shrunk, and over it. Now, you just let them go. Not because you don't care, but because you do about yourself. You begin to see that not everyone can go with you into your next becoming. Some people are karmic teachers, not lifelong companions. Some souls were meant to wake you up, not walk with you forever. Jung believed in the power of conscious detachment. To individuate, we must sever ties with what no longer reflects our essence. And doing so doesn't mean you lack love, it means you've stopped confusing love with self-abandonment. Sign 5. Your triggers begin to feel like invitations, not threats. Instead of collapsing every time you're emotionally activated, you pause. You ask, what wound is this touching? You begin to study your reactions with compassion instead of shame. This is shadow work. Jung insisted that to become whole, we must make the unconscious conscious. Every trigger is a map. Every emotional sting is a clue. Every overreaction is a portal to deeper integration. You no longer see your emotions as enemies. You begin to see them as guardians of forgotten pain. And as you befriend your shadow, you become less reactive and more powerful. Sin 6. You begin to experience symbolic death. Not physical death, but ego death. The story of who you were begins to unravel. The illusions of control, status, people-pleasing, or false certainty begin to crack. It can feel terrifying. It can feel like grief. Because it is. But this death is sacred. It is the compost in which your future self will bloom. Jung referred to this as the night sea journey, a descent into the unconscious, where old identities are dissolved and the true self is reborn. You're not dying. You're dissolving the lies. You're not losing yourself. You're finally meeting yourself. Sign 7. You become disgusted by what you used to tolerate. That toxic friendship, you see through it. That draining relationship, you outgrow it. That job that depleted your soul, you can no longer fake your way through it. Your energy becomes allergic to anything unaligned. This disgust is not cruelty. It's clarity. It's the soul's immune system kicking in. It means your standards are rising and your spirit is no longer willing to accept crumbs in places it once begged for bread. Carl Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And sometimes that darkness is how low we set the bar for ourselves. No more sign 8. You start living in cycles, not straight lines. You realize that healing is not a checklist. Growth is not linear. And becoming your truest self will involve revisiting old wounds from higher levels of consciousness, where once you judged yourself for feeling stuck, now you see it as a spiral staircase. Each return to the same pain comes with a deeper lesson, a more refined wisdom. You stop asking, "Why am I here again?" and begin asking, "What am I here to master this time?" This shift in perception is huge. You stop punishing yourself for not being further ahead and start honoring the rhythm of your transformation. It's not regression, it's recursion. Sign 9. You feel both exhausted and excited at the same time. You're tired, but it's a sacred tired. You've been shedding old skins, walking away from illusions, unlearning dysfunction, and reclaiming your soul. And yet, there's this quiet fire inside you that won't go out. That fire is your future self pulling you forward. Even when you doubt everything, even when you cry yourself to sleep, that inner knowing keeps whispering, "Keep going." This paradox, fatigue and hope, is often the last threshold before the breakthrough. It's the space where you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. It's the womb of your rebirth. And it's sacred. Sin 10, you'll begin to feel drawn toward deeper meaning. Surface-level pleasures no longer sustain you. You seek truth, depth, connection, and purpose. You begin to crave conversations that feed your soul instead of drain your spirit. You don't want more noise, you want essence. You don't want more followers, you want alignment. You don't want more approval, you want peace. And that hunger for meaning is the compass guiding you toward your new life. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when your desires shift from survival to selfhood, you know you're close. Sign 11. You can finally name your pain. There was a time when you carried sadness without knowing why, anxiety without explanation, rage without clarity. But now, the fog is lifting. You begin to trace your emotions to specific moments, traumas, relationships, and lies you told yourself just to cope. This naming is everything. Jung insisted that the unconscious rules us until we make it conscious. The moment you say, "I was abandoned, I was never seen, I internalize shame," you reclaim your power. You are no longer controlled by the wound, you are becoming the healer. This stage is not always pretty. It often comes with tears, shaking, old memories, but it also comes with liberation. You no longer carry the pain in silence, you confront it and you alchemize it. Sin 12, you start having spiritual déjà vu. You meet people who feel familiar. You walk into spaces that feel like home, even if you've never been there before. You start recognizing signs, synchronicities, and patterns that seem to align to be accidental. This is not fantasy. It's the unconscious making itself visible. Jung believed in synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that reveal the interconnectedness of the psyche and the cosmos. When you begin to see signs everywhere, it's because your inner world is finally in dialogue with the outer world. You are not imagining it. The universe is responding to your inner transformation with outer confirmation. What once felt random now feels orchestrated. What once felt chaotic now feels directed. Sign 30, and you begin choosing yourself, even when it hurts. You stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. You stop watering yourself down to be that. You stop shrinking to fit into rooms that were never built for your magnitude. And yes, it often costs you people, places, and patterns. But the loss is holy. It's a declaration. I will no longer abandon myself for acceptance. This is one of the most courageous thresholds. Choosing yourself is not narcissism, it's reclamation. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And when you do, you will lose some things. But what you gain is irreplaceable." Sin 14, you begin dreaming more vividly. Your unconscious becomes louder. You start waking up with images, symbols, strange narratives that feel important even if you don't understand why. These are not just dreams, they are communications from your deeper self. Jung taught that the unconscious reveals itself in dream imagery, especially during periods of intense transformation. A snake might mean rebirth. A broken house might symbolize the old psyche falling apart. Water might mean the descent into emotional healing. Pay attention. Your soul is speaking. The best stage of your life doesn't just arrive, you begin dreaming it first. Sign 15, you feel like you're outgrowing the life you haven't even lived yet. You look at the goals you once had and feel no desire. You achieve things that once would have thrilled you and feel empty. You begin to realize that your old dreams were built from trauma, fear, ego, or imitation. This is terrifying but beautiful. It means you're ready to build from the self, not the shadow. You're ready to dream not just from survival, but from soul. And this new vision will take time, but it will be yours. Jung said that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of the self, but by integration. And sometimes, you must destroy the old dream to make room for the real one. Sin 16. You become less reactive and more reflective. Where once you would lash out, you'll now pause. Where once you would spiral, you now breathe. You begin asking questions before assigning blame. Why does this bother me? What part of me feels threatened? Is this old pain wearing a new face? This emotional spaciousness is a sign of depth. It means you're becoming psychologically sovereign. You are no longer ruled by emotional flashbacks. You are grounded in inner presence. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you finally know what to do with it. You feel everything and still choose wisdom over impulse. That's power. Sign 17. You start cleaning things out physically and spiritually. You throw away clothes that don't feel like you anymore. You delete old photos, cut cords, cleanse your space, but it's deeper than that. You also start detoxing from identities, ideas and habits that tethered you to an outdated version of yourself. This purge is sacred. It's not a trend. It's initiation. It's the soul saying, make space for who you are becoming. Every item you release, every habit you end, every boundary you set as a door closing so another can open. Jung believed that change starts in the unconscious but manifests in matter. So if you feel compelled to clean, don't fight it. It's spiritual. Sign 18, you begin attracting mirrors, not distractions. People who trigger your wounds or reflect your growth and begin showing up more frequently. Some will challenge you, some will elevate you, but all of them will show you something essential about yourself. This mirroring is not a coincidence. It's the unconscious finding itself in others. Jung wrote extensively about projection and how we place parts of ourselves onto others, both dark and light. When you recognize this, you stop blaming and start learning. You realize every connection is either a lesson or a reflection, and both are priceless. Sin 19, you begin hearing a new inner voice and it's wiser. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shame, it whispers, it guides. It often says, trust yourself, let that go, or keep going. This voice isn't from fear. It's from presence. It's from your emerging self. For years, you might have been run by the voice of trauma, the critic, the doubter, the pleaser, the saboteur, but now a gentler voice rises, one rooted in clarity, not panic. Jung called this the self-integrated center of the psyche. When this voice emerges, you're not just healing, you're evolving. Sign 20, you no longer chase peace, you embody it. You don't beg for closure. You don't argue to be understood. You don't force anyone to stay. You are no longer interested in emotional chaos masquerading as passion. This peace is hard won. It came after many nights of overthinking, many mornings of regret, and many years of self. But now you simply walk away from what disturbs your nervous system. Carl Jung once said that neuroses is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. But once you let yourself grieve fully, you no longer need to numb, and in that stillness you are free. Sign 21, you stop waiting for the external world to validate your worth. You no longer need to be chosen to feel chosen. You no longer seek applause to feel valuable. You begin to source your self-worth from within, from the sacred awareness that you exist and that is enough. Jung's work revolved around the idea that healing means returning to your own center. And when that center is restored, you no longer beg others to reflect your light back to you. You know who you are, even when no one else does. Sin 22. Your past no longer defines your future. You carry it, you honor it, but you no longer worship it. The stories that once shackled you begin to dissolve. You are not the wounded child, the failed lover, or the rejected friend. You are something else now. Jung called this the integration of opposites, when you can see the past clearly without becoming it. You feel the pain without drowning in it. You honor the wound without reopening it. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without relapse. And this emotional mastery is one of the final signs that you're entering the best stage of your life. Sign 23, you begin living in alignment, not performance. This alignment is rare, but once you taste it, you can't go back. Even if it costs you opportunities, popularity, or relationships, you choose your truth every time. Carl Jung warned of the dangers of living a life that is not your own. When you live for others, you suffer. But when you live from the self, you thrive. Sign 24. You begin to feel strangely lucky. Not because everything goes your way, but because you finally see how even the worst events led you here. That heartbreak made you wiser. That betrayal awakened your discernment. That failure rerouted you toward your purpose. You no longer curse your pain, you thank it, because it broke the illusion and built your strength. Sign 25, you finally understand what wholeness means. Jung said the journey is not toward being good, but toward being whole. And wholeness is messy. It's complicated. It includes tears, rage, fear, and grace. But it's real. And when you stop fighting who you are and start embracing it, you've arrived. You are ready. This is the beginning of the best stage of your life. Carl Jung's greatest gift to the world was not an answer but a mirror. He showed us that within our darkness lies our healing, within our pain lies our power, and within our wounds lies the path to our wholeness. The best stage of your life is not a destination, it is a becoming, and you, dear soul, are becoming more real than ever.